Josh Hawley, who is one of the more conservative senators in Washington, D.C., went on Fox News to talk about the stimulus negotiations, among other things. And watch this segment. Watch how he not only advocates for $1,200 checks and $500 checks for kids, for everyone in America, he actually argues to the left of Nancy Pelosi. And this is something that, wow, like, I was definitely not expecting this at all. Like, certainly from Hawley, because I know Josh Hawley and Bernie Sanders have gotten together to try to push for $1,200 a month stimulus checks. And we know that they've been doing that for a while. But I did not expect the Fox host as well to appear to be pushing the narrative left of Pelosi. This is very interesting. So let's watch and let's talk about it.
I want to talk to you about this stimulus bill because it looks like they're getting somewhere. Just give us your update on where this stands right now.
Well, listen, the most important thing that Congress can do is give working people, working families relief before Christmas. And that's why we ought to vote in the Senate on a bill that will give $1,200 to every individual, $2,400 to couples, working families, $500 to kids who need it. This is what we did back in March. Every senator voted for it. This ought to be the centerpiece of any relief effort. People are desperate, Martha. Working people are desperate for help. We're not talking about wealthy people. We're talking about working people. They ought to be the center of this bill, not an afterthought. And that's why I've introduced legislation to get it done.
Yeah, this is what's so crazy when you look at the numbers on the deals that were considered months ago. And Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, said, nope, that's not enough. Listen to what she said. This is back in August 11th. She said this. Watch.
Last week, they came up with some meager proposals, and the president then over the weekend did even less to give an illusion so that the market would go up and people would think we're not paying attention, that he might be doing something. But let me just say this. We have children who are food insecure in our country.
So we have children who are food insecure, and that's absolutely true. You have people going to food banks who have never been to a food bank in their life and never expected to be at one. But let's put up this graphic. Matt Taibbi wrote about this today. Let's put up this graphic that shows this is the state and local aid that Nancy Pelosi said she could not do without, that she needed to have as part of any deal. Back in September, they were at $436 billion. Then in October, it shrunk to $300 billion. And the deal that they finally, came to the table on and said, OK, now it's time to help America's working people is down to $160 billion in state and local aid. So how did that happen?
Yeah, well, it's because the Democrat leadership has been a lot more interested in bailing out big government than they have in actually helping workers. And they wanted hundreds of billions for big government instead of helping working people. And that's why I say what we ought to be focused on, and what I'm focused on, is helping working families. No bailouts to big government, no bailouts to big corporations for that matter. They need this corporate welfare. What we need is help to working people. And
there's a couple of things here. Hawley, obviously, me and him do not agree ideologically on many things, but this is one area where I'm giving him a ton of credit because he's doing what most Republicans would not do, and in fact, most Democrats will not do. Instead of conceding and saying, oh, well, this is the best package we're going to get, he's like, no, we need a big bailout. And he's taking it a step further because a couple of people have advocated for $1,000 or $1,200 checks. He wants $1,200 checks, $500 for each child, and he wants us to not bail out corporations and the federal government. Now, as far as corporate bailouts, this is something I've been saying for a long, long time. If you look at the bill that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell have agreed on, this bill possesses $2 billion to go toward Trump's border wall. This is a bill that was written in the House. Why is $2 billion for a border wall in a COVID bailout bill? We don't need a wall right now. We need people to have money in their pockets. Local government, that money can be going to state and local governments. There are a lot of governments that are going bankrupt. You look at a government like New York City, for instance, New York State, for instance, who puts in, I believe they get 95 cents back from the federal government for every dollar they put in. They're putting in a bunch of money, and now, when they need to be bailed out, they're not getting help. But you can get money to a border wall. And this is Nancy Pelosi, who criticized Trump for the border wall, but she's going to allow this to stand in his bill. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But now, anyway, I digress. Let me get back to this point. Back to the point. So, yes, Hawley's been advocating for the stimulus checks. But what surprised me the most was when the Fox host put up a graph saying, hey, this is what Nancy Pelosi said she wanted for states back then. And now she's willing to concede and just say she wants this amount. And, why is that? And then Hawley talks about how the states and local governments need that money and how the individuals also need these checks. And, Nancy Pelosi, she talks a big game about how, yes, people need this money, people need this, that. But when it actually comes to the legislation, she's speaking out of both sides of her mouth here. She's giving money to corporations with no problem, giving money to the government to build border walls with no problem. But when it comes to someone like, I don't know, the average American, the people you're supposed to actually be representing, she's like, oh, well, you know what? $600 negotiation is fine. Like, all that hardball that Nancy Pelosi was playing before was just to get Biden reelected. When Trump and them had came up with the $890 billion stimulus to bail out, I believe it was, and she's like, nope, this is not enough. And by the way, I think that would have gave $1,000 to every adult in America, by the way. And she's like, nope, not enough. We can't accept anything less than whatever blah, blah, blah. And she was doing it basically so that Biden would get elected. And now that Biden's elected, she's like, oh yeah, $600? Cool, or fine, whatever you want. Border wall? Yeah, no problem. So it just goes to show you she has no principles. All she's concerned about is power and also looking like someone who's a master, quote, negotiator who's going to stick it to Trump. And now that they've won the election, and they're probably going to lose the Senate, but there's a chance they might win the Senate. Now they're like, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, let's negotiate with Republicans and do business as usual. And it's just ridiculous. Like the fact that, and you guys know how I feel about Fox News. I've done almost 80 videos on this channel. Half of them are probably negative videos about Fox or someone who was negative on Fox. So the fact that I'm praising Fox for going left of Nancy Pelosi it's just incredible. It's incredible. Like it's unfathomable. I could not fathom this. Like a couple months ago, Fox News going to the left of Democrats in favor of stimulus checks. Republicans going to the left of Democrats in favor of more money for the people and against corporate bailouts. Like, you got to be kidding me, man. You got to be kidding me. This is crazy. And honestly, if this trend continues and more people come out like Josh Hawley on economic issues, Republicans will win more elections. They will. They will win more elections if this becomes the norm. Because people do care about social issues, but they don't care about virtue signaling. And, I have a lot of friends who will put aside their social issues in favor of economic issues. There are people who vote like that. And there are also people like other communities who traditionally vote for them, like the black community, for instance. The black community always almost votes Democrat in pretty much every state, but they're more similar culturally as far as ideology around things like gay marriage and abortion to white evangelicals who vote Republican. So if the Republican Party starts to care about these groups of people, the American people in general, but especially if these groups feel like they're cared about by Republicans, they would vote Republican. So I don't know, man. I can see the Democrats just losing their base over the next 20 years if the party doesn't get more progressive. It's ridiculous. The fact that you have Fox News and a Republican senator going to the left of Nancy Pelosi just shows you how Neoliberalism has created a failed democratic state, and it just doesn't work.